and I'd like to introduce Jared Spool. So, Jared has been one of my favorite resources for finding good tips on research and also UX strategy. And someone that I knew once I started, the more that I read about the things that you put out, Jared, that I needed to have you in front of this audience. So, and I'll let you introduce yourself a little bit more, but some things that I've noted about you, you founded one of the, I would say, the premier bricks and mortar UX design school, the Center. Your title is co-founder maker of awesomeness, so we'd love to hear more about that. You began as a software engineer back in the early 80s. And
Oh, before DEC, but yeah, no, back in the 80s.
yeah. And then also you were at Tufts teaching experience design management back in the early 90s when it was barely recognized in most places, even including academia. So with that, I'll turn the time over to Jared. Thank you for being with us today.
Well, thanks for having me. My thinking here was that I would talk for approximately 20 or so minutes. And then, and in that process, I will dangle a lot of loose threads in the topic. I'll jump around a little bit and leave some threads open. And what I'm hoping is that y'all will take the time to put some questions into the chat. And for the second half of the presentation, we'll just drive it off your questions. So basically, you get to help me finish the presentation. It just turns out for me to be a better experience if we do that. And today, what I thought I would talk to you about is how experience work becomes a competitive advantage in organizations. Because that's what my work is. My work is all about strategic UX. Now, I am old school, and I just refer to everything as UX, whether it's customer experience or employee experience or user experience. It's all about people's experiences. So I'm a UX person. That's how I think of myself. But I have always focused on whoever is interacting with the products or whoever the product changes in the products affect their lives. So there are all sorts of people out there who don't even know that the reasons they were able to accomplish something in their life or not accomplish something in their life was because of some design decision that was made in some system they've never even heard about. So to me, that's all UX. So there are other people who have other definitions, but I have this extremely broad definition. It just works for me. But when I think about the work, what I think about is how do we understand people's experiences? So let me try this here. Get my computer to behave. Here we go. So the idea is this. If we can think of an experience as some period of time in someone's life that they are usually trying to accomplish something. They're trying to get from a point A to a point B in terms of something in their life. And for today, I'm going to talk about a salesperson who's at the end of the quarter, who's trying to get quotes out. And it's not just any salesperson. Her name is Edna. And Edna's a real person. She's a real salesperson for a company that sells equipment, and she is really teetering on the edge of making her quotas for this quarter. So she's very focused on trying to get a quote out to a big customer, because if this quote gets through the process and the sale gets closed, she will make her quota, and she probably won't make her quota if she doesn't do that. So she's hyper focused on this sale, and we're going to measure Edna's experience on a scale of extreme frustration to extreme delight as she tries to go through this. Now, her day starts delightful because she gets an email from a big customer that she's been nursing, saying that they want to go ahead. They need a quote. So she starts by going through the email, and she's delighted by just the volume of what they're asking for. So she's going to be able to easily make her quota if this sale goes through. And but then she has to start logging into the quoting system. And the first thing she realizes is that part of the products that she's being asked to quote are products she's never sold before, because they're new to the product line. They're a reconfiguration of an old product. And she's realizing that there are pieces to this product that she has to configure for the customer, but she's really not familiar. So she goes into the quoting system, and the quoting system is decades old, and it's it runs on some mainframe somewhere, and it's clunky, and she has to fire up a virtual machine in order to get to the quoting system, because it doesn't run natively on her own PC laptop. But she figures out what the quote needs to be. She gets the configuration. She has to go into online help, and she goes to submit the quote, and then suddenly she's told that there's an error in the quote, but the error code is mysterious and unusual. And then through all this, she ends up having to call the help desk, and in order to figure out what this error message means. And the help desk sort of knows what it is and gives her a couple remedies, and after a little while gets her back online. They have to call somebody to figure this out, and then they get her back online, and her day is going. And now she gets another email, and the other email is from a different customer who she thought was in the bag, but is being told that the CFO has a whole bunch of questions. So now she has to go and bring up their quote. She hasn't looked at their quote in a while. And in order to bring up her quote, she has to save the existing quote for this customer. And it gives her another error message because this customer has an ampersand in their name. And it turns out that when she goes to save the quote, the old system doesn't like the ampersand in the name. So she has to rename the quote and try to remember what it's called. And then she has to bring up the other customer's quote, and she realizes that the answer is really quick. And then she goes back into the other quote, and you get the idea, right? This is an experience. So when we talk about experience design, we're talking about this is the experience that over the years we have designed for Edna to get her quota. And it's a miserable experience. And chances are Edna is the only one who knows this experience exists, because we haven't done any research to find out what Edna's is. There's some whiteboard somewhere that has a customer journey on it that has something that doesn't look like this at all. The customer journey looks, sort of like that, because, nothing ever goes wrong in the customer journeys that we have on our whiteboards. And so that's what somebody's designing for. And they're constantly adding new things to the quoting system. And there's every time the product line changes, the quoting system has to be updated. And it's supposed to do some recommended configuration stuff, but it doesn't do it. And there's all sorts of things that make Edna's life really complicated and really difficult and really stressed out, and all of these different pieces. And maybe this quoting system is written by the IT department of Edna's company. Maybe this quoting system is a third-party package that is bought from some company that sells quoting systems. It doesn't really matter. The problem here is that Edna's experience with this quoting system is mostly frustrating all the time. Everything that's below this center line is frustration. And everything above this line is delight. The line, by the way, that center line, has a name. We call it satisfaction. Because when you ask somebody if something is satisfactory, you're not asking them if it's great. You're asking them if it's palatable, right? You know, if you go in and you say, is this restaurant satisfactory? You're basically asking, is the restaurant food edible? And so edible is not a high Yelp rating. It is not something that restaurateurs shoot for. They don't like, hey, we've got the most edible food in town. That is not the scale. But that's when we do satisfaction ratings, we're basically asking, was this good enough? Okay, fine, move on. And that's all we're talking about here. Now, the thing about Edna's frustration is that all this frustration eats time. All this frustration creates stress. It's preventing Edna from getting the sales quotas out the sales quotes out that she needs to get out to close, which of course prevents the business from getting the deals that they want. So we can do something here. We can ask a question. We can say, well, what would it look like if we made it delightful all the way across? That's the question. Right. And the thing is that this delightful experience, what that would look like, we can refer to as our aspirational experience. Whereas this experience here, this experience is the current experience. And this, where did I put my green pen? Oh, there it is. This experience here, this is IT's imagined experience. This doesn't exist, right? And I'm sorry if my handwriting's not readable. I've apparently chosen the sans legible font for this presentation. The thing here is that we can look at this experience and we can talk about it in an interesting way, right? So we can look at Edna's experience and the experience of other salespeople trying to get to the end of their quotas, and the people at the help desk, and the sales manager's experience who has to approve Edna's stuff and make sure that they're quoting the right things and they don't use old prices and all of those things. And we can talk about how everything that happens below the satisfaction line is frustrating. And that's what we call poor experience. As long as we're below that satisfaction line, we're frustrating our user, we're frustrating our customer, we're frustrating our employee, we're frustrating the people who, have you ever been on the phone with somebody at, a customer service person? The customer service person is, I'd like to do that, but my computer won't let me do it, right? We're frustrating end customers and the families of end customers. I mean, it's frustration all the way down. And That's what's happening when we have poor experience. And the thing is that poor experience tends to be caused by just a few number of things. We've either missed an expectation that somebody had. They expected things to work a certain way and they don't work that way. And they're baffled as to why anyone would design it to work that way. We have unmet needs. They need something from the system. They need the system to tell you that if you buy part A and you buy part B, you need part C to connect A to B. That's a need that they have. And if the system doesn't do it, they don't think to ask for it, and suddenly they're in trouble, right? Or we have undue burden. It takes time to fire up the virtual machine. You can't copy data from the virtual machine into apps that aren't in the virtual machine. Different apps run in different virtual machines, so you actually have to shut down one virtual machine to fire up a different app to run the other virtual machine. All of this burden does not add to the quality of the work. Right? So we create all sorts of undue burden for people all the time. So these are the things that create poor experience. And that exists everything below this center line of how we think about experiences. Now, as we just go across the satisfaction line, now we can do things like we can meet the expectations the user has. The user expects it to work a certain way, and it works that way. It meets their needs, what we would call active needs. Active needs are needs the user can tell you about. Oh, I need it to do this, right? What a lot of people refer to as requirements. And we have reasonable burden, right? People come in expecting that, things aren't free. There has to be some effort to make something happen. I'm going to have to put the data in the computer to get the data out of the computer. So there's reasonable burden that comes from all of this. And this is the realm of good UX and good experience. And so when we're in this realm, right, we're doing okay. The house that I'm in, we just renovated, and we were living someplace else for a year. It was complete new renovation. And part of the renovation is I got 3 brand new sparkling bathrooms with 3 new sparkling toilets. And frankly, the toilets work fine. They work great. They do exactly what I expect them to do. They meet all the needs that I have for them. They are a good user experience. If they didn't work, that would be really frustrating to me. I would be really upset. When we first moved into this house back in the late 80s, the first time we ended up flushing the toilet in one bathroom, water came through the ceiling in the room below. So we quickly learned that didn't meet our needs. And so, but that doesn't happen in this house, and I'm very excited about that house. But frankly, I don't go around telling everybody about the toilets. Well, I just told all you about the toilets, but normally I don't talk about the toilet in my house because it's fine. It's not remarkable. It does what it's supposed to do. That's good UX. But what happens? What happens if we exceed the expectations of customers? And we anticipate needs they can't tell us about. These are what we call latent needs. Latent needs are, have you ever bought a thing where you didn't know that you needed this thing, but now that you have this thing, you are just like, I am never not having this thing? A year ago, we got a new car and went through last winter with it, and it has heated steering wheel. I have never had a car with heated steering wheels in the 50 years I've been driving. I never needed a heated steering wheel, and yet now that I have a heated steering wheel, I will never not have a heated steering wheel, because this, if you live in the Northeast of the U.S., this is the thing to have. It just changes the way you drive. I mean, you don't have to take your mittens off to. It's just, or you can take your mittens off. I mean, to hit the controls, and you don't have to worry about it. It's just wonderful. That's a latent need, right? So those are latent needs, and then finally, we just remove all burden, right? We just eliminate the burden entirely, and things just work. And the data, it just knows the data already because it knows the pattern of work, and it can extrapolate and all of those things. And this is the realm of great UX. And the thing about great UX is that great UX, people will pay a lot for. This is how luxury brands work. Right? They work because they exceed the customer's expectations. They anticipate their needs. They remove any burden from the process. Right? They're always relentlessly hunting down any place the customer is burdened. This is what white glove service is about. Right? And this is how an organization like Disney can charge 5 times what Six Flags charges for an amusement park, because they exceed expectation, they anticipate everybody's needs, they remove the burden. And so the value, people will pay to go from a poor experience to a good experience, right? People will pay something for that, but they will pay a lot for getting a great experience. And even if they don't interact with the systems directly, even if they interact with people who use the systems, changing those systems will change the experiences that everybody has down the value stream. And as a result, they are able to succeed. A friend of mine took her kids to Disney World a couple of years ago. First time they'd ever went. And when they were setting up this trip, she was talking with her wife, and they were ambivalent as to spending all this extra money. It seemed very expensive for this. And she got to it, and the kids were having fun. And the very first night in the hotel, the one of the 6-year-olds, they have twins, came down with an ear infection. And she thought, oh my gosh, we spent all this money, and this vacation is going to be ruined. And it was the middle of the night. And she calls the front desk and she says, I got a kid with an ear infection. What do you recommend I do? And the front desk immediately, whoever answered the phone said, okay, we got you on this. Here's what we're going to do. We've got our own ambulance here at Disney World. So we're going to have the ambulance come and pick you both up and take you to the hospital. It's on us. There won't be any charge for that. You're going to have to pay for the hospital visit. That's on your insurance. You deal with that. But when you're done, you just give me a call. I will have an Uber sent here and are sent to you, and then we'll pay for it for you to come back. And we're going to provide in-room entertainment for your recuperating kid for the day tomorrow, because they'll probably not be able to mingle in the park for at least a day. So while they're bedridden, we're going to take care of them. We're going to have that all set. And the thing was, this is built into their systems. And now this mother cannot stop talking about Disney. And all this was user experience. That's all it was. It was the system that the person in the middle of the night at the front desk was using. She knew exactly what to do, exactly how to make things happen. Everything went exactly as planned. They had the best vacation they've ever had, and they will go back to Disney again, time and time again. This is how UX becomes a competitive advantage. Okay. I'm going to take questions now because I've put a whole bunch of things out on the table, and I know that I have not answered all the questions that you have. So put your questions in the chat. It helps if you just say question for Jared. That way we'll know that that's what you intend. And while we wait for some questions, I just want to mention that we have a community, an online community for people who are UX leaders or people who want to become UX leaders. We have 51,000 people in the community. Let me put, it's called Leaders of Awesomeness. And you can join, it's free. There's all sorts of resources in there. We meet once a week to talk about all sorts of different things. Next week, we are talking on Monday, this coming Monday, we are talking about what executives need from UX metrics. The following week, we have another topic about metrics. After that, we're talking, we've been having a bunch of topics lately for unemployed experienced folks, because there's a lot of them on the market right now. And we just had a session on that. So we have a tremendous amount of things. But at this point, we're going to take questions. It looks like Rich has one. Rich wrote, in environments where the pressure is to deliver, how do you get buy-in from leaders to spending enough time on research, especially when they think they know the problem? Oh, Rich, you want to say more about that, or does that pretty much summarize where you're at? You can unmute and just.
Yeah, sure. I realized I was typing, so it's like repeated my question. Yeah, I think often with leadership, they think they know the problem statement, and therefore they've gone into sort of solution mode and kind of just want you to deliver. But I think what you were saying, and also what Elliot was saying beforehand, was actually that research piece in terms of understanding the user experience or the problem statement to enough detail to then get to a point where you can then solutionize or develop experiences that are going to actually address the problem, often is almost viewed as a luxury. and if you skip that point, you end up just designing solutions or experiences that actually don't really address the original problem.
Right.
Because it's almost seen as a luxury. So how do you get people to kind of go, actually, yes, we do need to spend some time to do the right level of research to make sure that we're addressing the right issue?
Right. That's a great question. And there are a couple ways to address the question. First, there's a technical name that we use in our work for when there's an absence of research. And the technical name is guessing. When you're not doing research, you're completely guessing what the experience of the user actually is. And it's unlikely that anybody is guessing what Edna's experience looks like when she's dealing with the virtual machine problems that they have, right? They keep adding new things, and one thing doesn't get upgraded, so it needs the old virtual machine version, and it won't work in the new one. And the other one is a new system that won't work in the old one. And there's no way to move data from one to the other. So if you watch Edna work, one of the things you'll notice is she writes a ton of stuff on pieces of paper from one system, closes down the app, closes down the virtual machine, goes into another thing, opens the app, opens the virtual machine, and types it in. She's a human copy and paste. And this technology was solved in 1981. So we know how to do copy and paste, but the systems don't support that. And so she has to compensate for it. So much of work is compensating for the fact that we're not investing in the research. And so the way that I tend to tackle this is by looking for examples of what happens when we didn't do research. Where does that money go? Because it turns out it goes in a whole lot of places. So, for example, if you don't do research on people's experiences, you end up getting lots of support calls. We could look at Edna dealing with the help desk. There's an entire team of people who are staffed to make sure another team of people we pay salaries for can get their job done. If we can make the systems more accommodating, we don't have to pay those people to assist the other people whose job it is to just assist. And in the case of Edna's problem, she had to call someone in the help desk. They didn't know the answer. They called the help desk. And so I don't know how nested that problem got. But, you know, there were a lot of people trying to figure out that inscrutable code. And that is a very expensive proposition. But who in the organization knows what we're spending on those support calls? When you start to aggregate the cost of those calls, which is actually pretty easy to do once you look for them, you can realize that the organization is spending millions of dollars on that. And so, okay, we're saving money on research because we know the users, but then we discover, you know, where in our feedback loop have we created openings so that we discover whether, in fact, the bet that we placed, which is all a guess is a bet, actually won or lost. We are constantly betting on our ideas, and nobody knows what their win-loss ratio is on their betting. Go into a casino and try to play the casino that way, you run out of money pretty damn quick.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Does that help?
Yeah, that's useful. Yeah, really good. Yeah.
I mean, how many sales is that organization losing because the virtual machines create too much burden for the salespeople at the end of the quarter?
Yeah, I guess organizations are going to be littered with these sorts of examples where there's almost now sort of projects or programs of work that are trying to address a problem that was built sort of 6 years ago, and no one's really looked at what was the missing point.
I work with a major Fortune 100 manufacturer who has a 50,000 people supply chain system for which they have 14 major applications and God knows how many minor applications and spreadsheets and what else they use to support those things. And the last major application was released and updated 14 years ago. Nothing's been changed since. And they want to replace this entire thing with AI. All 50,000 people they want to replace with AI. Except AI needs to train on something. And there's no documentation on what these people do. They have people who've been working there 22, 25 years who have so much knowledge in their head that there's nothing to train the AI on. And they think they're just going to solve this problem by by just replacing everybody with a stochastic parrot. And because that's all generative AI is. And the fact is, and they'll burn down a couple forests doing it. The fact is that this is going to kill them, right? Because they haven't done the work to understand what they've actually built, and now they have all these people who are reaching retirement age, who they would like to get off the payroll, that have all of the basic knowledge of how their organization makes money.
Interesting.
So, AI is about to destroy our world, is my basic take. And it's not because it's going to replace jobs, but because it's actually going to create jobs of all the messes of people whose job is for all the messes it's going to make. In fact, I'm going to say it here. This is that you can say you were here when I first said this. I predict that within 3 years, we're going to see products on the market that are actively promoting that they are 100% free of any AI. That's going to be a selling point. It is a future of chaos. But, it'll make some billionaires rich, and that's why we're here. Okay. Nina, you have a question. You want to say a little bit about what it is?
Yes, Jared, if you can hear me well.
I can hear you.
So thank you for the example. Definitely the UX affect productivity through the example you mentioned. I just wonder, through your experience or conversation with others, are there other areas that HR should be paying attention to in terms of leveraging, the insights or re-engineering from UX perspective for the company, for internal employees?
So there's this program that was on American TV. I don't know if it showed up anywhere else. It may have started in the UK, because all good television programs start in the UK. But the program was called Undercover Boss. And the whole premise of the program was that executives would actually dress up like the working people in their companies and go do the job of the working people in their companies. And hilarity ensues when it comes clear that the executives are completely unskilled to do the things that make their company tick. And so it was a show that was very entertaining. And the thing about this show is that this is actually not a joke. This is what everybody should be doing all the time. Your executive team, your entire HR department, most of your middle managers should be going and, at a minimum, shadowing the people who do the work. And at maximum, should actually try to do that work, should learn how to do it. And some companies pull this off, right? Zappos, I don't know if they still do this, but when Tony Jay was alive, he was very proud of the fact that in your first 6 weeks at Zappos, you'll spend 2 weeks on the customer support lines, actually answering real customers with real questions. And you'll spend 2 weeks in their warehouses, handling returns, stocking shelves, and fulfilling orders. And that's in your first 6 weeks of employment. And the reason for this is so that you go back and you think, okay, how can we make this better? How can we do this well? And if you're not doing that, but you are making decisions that affect, and in HR, you're making staffing decisions, you're deciding what someone needs to have as a minimal set of skills. I had a major insurance company, one of the top US insurance companies, contact me recently because they keep hiring people for their design teams. And those people don't make it more than 6 months before they quit. And they have this incredible churn. And they were like, we're hiring the wrong people. Like, you're solving the wrong problems. And so if you don't know what the experiences are like, if you are in HR and you don't know what the day-to-day experiences are like of the people that you are, or who are in your charge, who are trying to do their best work every day, but the systems, the processes, the siloing of the organization prevents them from doing their best work every day, then you're from an HR perspective, you are actually not managing the resources of the humans in your organization. Was I too tough on you, Nina?
That's clear. I think that's my takeaway from your example is one is productivity. Also probably has to do with mental health. The chronic frustrations, and that definitely can take a toll on people. And lastly, the onboarding, the retention of people. Yeah, I had an example where the hired engineers, they don't last for very long. Software company because they don't want to work on the kind of old dated the tools. It's very frustrating for them. So yeah, I can relate to the example you talk about. So thank you.
Yes, it's very hard to look at an organization that claims that it values their employees more than anything, turn around and not give them the best tools to do the best work, and somehow say make do. And at the same time, the company is telling Wall Street that they're racking up record profits while the organization is refusing to spend any money to actually let the people do their best work. And then you wonder why you have a morale problem.
Yeah, I think understanding the pain points is really crucial to the employee experience, to look at that probably below the line, the negatives, because employees also have to spend extra time and extra efforts to make up those hurdles, to jump over those hurdles, get job done. So
exactly right. That's exactly right. Okay. Elliot, do we have time for one more?
Yes, we do. I think we have time for 2 or 3, actually.
Oh, okay. It looks like Antoine has a question. Antoine, do you want to say what your question is? Assuming Antoine is still with us, which he might not be. Oh, we miss him. Let's go to Mariana. Hopefully Mariana's here. I'll read Mariana's question.
Is actually here.
You're here. Okay, Mariana, can you say what your question is?
Yes. So you started to speak about this production company because I also come from a production environment. And my question is, what is your expectation how this cooperation will end for you? And is there anything you can do to change if it goes the wrong way? So give some best practices that I could take away and really use them with my stakeholders, if possible.
Say a little bit more about your organization.
Well, we are also a production company, and of course, we have the customer pain points, we have the employee pain points, and it already was mentioned here that the management knows best what they are doing. They are not really open to listen to some other insights. So the change is really, really difficult. Yeah. And I am not an external person. I am somebody who is there on the spot every day. So I'm not this pricely consultant for whom they pay and then they need to listen. Yeah, I'm somebody who is there every day with them. So I'm just looking for some, some words to use to to open little cracks that will, lead to them being more interested in this human experience point of view, or how could I put it? Yeah.
Right. Okay. I got it. So first thing is, they're not going to be interested per se in the human experience point of view, right? So we can just end that conversation there. It's just not something that they're interested in, probably. I mean, maybe they're curious about it, but in my experience, that is not the thing. They have an objective. They are a set of objectives, right? They have things that they are committed to do, right? So the first thing you can do, I think we should all be doing this, is you can talk to the executives and you can say, or whoever it is that you can get access to, you say, okay, a year from now, so today it is November 7th of 2024. On November 7th of 2025, what things would you like to have different? What are the things that are most important that we change about this organization, or about how we work, or about the products we deliver, or whatever it is? What is at the top of your list for that? So that's the first thing. So you have to know what it is they want to do, because if you don't know where they're trying to go, then it's going to be very hard to have a conversation, because everything you say is going to feel like you're trying to get in the way of them accomplishing the things they're trying to accomplish. So you got to first frame everything in terms of where they want to go. And then the second thing is you got to ask them what they believe are the things that are going to get become risky, that are going to present some sort of possibility of failure to getting to those things. What are the things that are keeping them up at night? What are the things that are most problematic for them? And that those two questions should give you quite a lot to work with. Because if they can tell you what they want to change, and then you can look at everything that's happening in the organization and ask the question, what are we doing today that's getting in the way of that change? And then you can check that against their perceived risks. And you can do what, if it's on the list of perceived risks, you can say, okay, this is this is something that you said is a risk. Here's how we're going to start working to mitigate this risk. And if it's not on their list of perceived risks, then you have an opportunity to say, hey, there's something else that we should be afraid of here. And that is the practices that we have, in this area actually make it hard for people to do the thing you want to do. And I think we need to pay some attention to this. And what you're doing in the process is you're not telling them that it's important to be human-centered. What you're doing is you're being human-centered and telling them how being human-centered is going to is required to get them where they need to go. You never have to tell them that we're being human-centered, just like my mother never told me that there were vegetables in the tomato sauce when she served me spaghetti, but that's how she got me to eat my vegetables.
Thank you, clear.
Okay.
Jared, I think that's actually we're at time. But
okay.
If people want to reach out to you with other questions, what's the best way?
Well, the easiest way is to join the Leaders of Awesomeness community.
Yeah.
And I'll put the link in again. And that will be a good place. You can also connect to me on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear from you there. My LinkedIn profile is right here. I'll put that in. So those are probably the easiest two ways to get a hold of me.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Jared. Very enjoyable segment with you today. Really appreciate the clarity, and I think you gave a lot of people some really poignant advice. I think this was excellent. So thank you for helping to frame. I think sometimes it's challenging to express to others the value of what we do, and I think you really helped us to do that today. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for encouraging my behavior.
Hope to.